So yeah, prospecting for new clients. I didn't mention, Scotty actually spent about 10 years doing door-to-door sales and insurance, which is enough to give a lot of people nightmares. But so he knows a lot about prospecting for new clients.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to go through 5 things today. So I'm going to just share the screen in a second. And by the end of today's session, I want you to have gained enough confidence and belief in yourself that prospecting is an important part of your business, along with sales and marketing. And there's a big difference between the 3. So the 5 things I'm going to go over today, I'll just share this screen for a second. So, yep, share. Okay, sweet. So I'm going to go over these 5 things. So there's the 4 levels of the human mind, which is if I get this going. Yep, 4 levels of the human mind, which is a foundation layer for just about everything that I teach. So I'm going to go over that in a little bit more detail. The cold, warm, and hot zones. And this is where the difference between your sales, your marketing, and your prospecting comes in. Then social media and prospecting, and how to prospect a little bit more on social media. A fish attracting device, and that's something to do with how you actually reverse prospect and reverse market. So we'll get to that one. You'll probably enjoy that one. And the last one is the difference here with the marketing, the sales, and the prospecting around your business cycle and how all that fits in together. And look, prospecting is a really important part of business. And one thing I know for certain is if you're good at prospecting, you'll be able to build your business when it's going good, and you'll never have a bad time, because every time it starts to slow down, you'll start prospecting again and build your business straight back up again. So being able to prospect is one of those foundation layers in business that's really, really important and critical, if you ask me. I won't say it's a lost trade. I think sales is a lost trade, but certainly prospecting is starting to die away as well because of social media. People think they put up some marketing and they're prospecting, when really it's slightly different. And that's what we'll try and uncover today with the prospecting. So back to you for a second, Courtney. What's your thoughts? Now you're doing all the Entrepreneur Facilitators program. How does prospecting fit in with what you're teaching the guys here?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that comment about social media, I think, don't get me wrong, it's definitely got a lot of value. And I think sometimes people put too much value maybe on social media. And, if you throw up a social media workshop, you fill it straight away, and there's loads of social media stuff happening. But I definitely think people undervalue, prospecting and sales and selling. And, I think you mentioned to me a while back, sales, selling, prospect can be a bit of a lost art. I definitely think when looking at the clients we work with, the ones who are having the most success, they're getting out of their comfort zones in terms of they're getting on the phone and they're just linking in with people and cold calling. And it's something that's uncomfortable for most people, but the people who are achieving the most are doing that. And when I look at people who perhaps their business journey's only been short, they haven't gone on. I think it hasn't always been about the product. Sometimes they've had a good product, but it's their ability to just get out and connect with clients and build clientele for their products. So some of the observations I think we've seen, it's been great to just work with so many businesses, and you kind of see patterns of what leads to a successful small business, maybe patterns that lead to not so successful small business too.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was only just did a session yesterday, an international session. And a lot of people ask me about, their careers and where they are. And I started a software company, but the reality is what made the software company work wasn't the software. It was actually my ability to be able to go and have a conversation with people and get a yes answer and get a sale. And that was the difference. There was a lot of smarter programmers than me out there. So your observation about some of these startups that your entrepreneur facilitators you got at the moment is the difference is in that execution, right? So if we go to look at the first thing, which is the 4 levels of the human mind. So I can pull up the screen again later, but it's closed, open, confident, and belief. So you yourself go through that same journey when you first start in business. You've gone from closed, you're open, you've got an idea, and then you're going through the confidence and belief stages. And when you're out prospecting, what you're doing is you're just trying to get people that might be interested in business to open their minds and become part of your business as well. So the 4 levels of the human mind is a foundation layer. So when you're talking about sales, you're talking about trying to get people to the confident and belief level, and you're trying to close a deal. But when you're prospecting, it's well before that. So you're not selling. In fact, when you're marketing, you're just putting it out there. You really don't know. You're putting things out there. But when you're prospecting, you're starting to pick up the phone or write some emails or cold call people, go and physically prospect people, just to do one thing, which is that very first layer, which is open people's minds. So it's really important to understand the journey you're going on and the journey they're going on, the people you're talking to. So you don't turn it into a sales pitch, you just turn it into prospecting, which is just starting that conversation up and having a nice, friendly conversation about what you both do and how you both fit into the space. And then preferably seeing what you can do to help them grow their business so they can help you grow your business, a bit of collaboration even. And that's how prospecting sort of works. So just try to understand the 4 levels of the human mind as part of the journey that you're going on and they're going on with you about your products and services. So there's closed, there's open, there's confident, and there's belief. I'll pull the screen up again in a minute, but we talk about that one a lot. You can see that journey as well with the people coming in with their startup businesses, can't you?
So is that, initial prospecting, that initial conversation, is that really just relationship building? You're obviously not on the sell, it's just building rapport. And
I mean, you think about it, if you had one constructive conversation with the prospect, not a sales, but in prospecting, trying to grow your business and your relationships, and they turn into sales leads, don't worry, they can turn and pivot. But I'm just talking about if you did one constructive, prospecting call a week, well, that's 50 odd decent prospect conversations you've done a year. I mean, you think about how big your business will be in 2 or 3 years' time. If you just do one constructive in your avatar client, in your hot zone, in your business, how good your business will look after a few years. And it's not that hard. So as much as some people are scared to go and actually pick up the phone and say, let's catch up for a coffee, or walk out and go and see somebody, it's actually a really, really important foundation layer of the business. So
how important is it to get on the phone, to get catch up with someone? I know nowadays you can message people through Facebook, you can message people via email. How important is it just to get on the phone and talk to someone?
Funny thing is, I had someone say to me recently, they said, oh, does all the things you did when you first started still work today? And I'm thinking, I'm not that old. But the reality is it even works even more. So when you pick up the phone, have a conversation with someone, they almost go, oh, wow. Like the amount of confidence and belief they get back about having a conversation with you is amazing, because it's almost abnormal now. You're now doing something different to everyone else. And that's how you stand out, by doing different things. So when you ask how important it is, well, yeah, if you really think someone's going to be a good prospect and you want to start that relationship off, even if they're in your cold zone, which we'll move into next, picking up the phone and having a conversation with someone, if you can, of course. If they're overseas, it's a bit harder, but with Zoom nowadays, you can do it everywhere in the world. Yeah, it's super important. And if you did one of those a week, a massive amount of business will turn up your way just over a period of time.
Yeah, it's interesting sharing an office with Scotty. Scotty's office is a couple of meters away from mine. So I kind of observe things, and what I've observed about Scotty is he might link in with people, whether it's through LinkedIn or social media, but as soon as the opportunity comes up to get on the phone, Scotty's on the phone. Scotty and I are actually running a little business retreat early next year. And so for me, that's been prospecting. I was starting from scratch, no clientele whatsoever. And it's interesting, I kind of connected with a couple of people, and I thought to myself, what would Scotty do? And I jumped on the phone, and it's amazing when you just, all you got to do is jump on their website, find their phone number, jump on the phone and give them a call. It is amazing.
They just open up, right? And all of a sudden have this conversation, not trying to sell anything, just starting the relationship to have that conversation. And it's prospecting, not selling where you're ringing up going, hey, do you want to buy? You're ringing up your dead set prospecting. And if we look at the cold, warm and hot zone, so there's 3 zones, right? And there's the cold, warm and hot zones will happen everywhere, but let's just look at it at a helicopter view of your business. The cold zone are the people that aren't clients. The warm zone is the people you're talking to, and the hot zone is clients. So if we look at it at a helicopter view of the cold, warm and hot zone that way, when you're prospecting, you can actually prospect at all 3 layers. So you can prospect with your existing clients in the hot zone. I mean, they're obviously the easiest ones to prospect with. Ring them up saying, how's it going? Is there anything else we can do for you? Things like that. That's easy prospecting. They're right in your hot zone. In your warm zone, you can still pick up the phone, have that conversation with people that might have been interested before or were clients once and have gone. Pick up the phone, have a chat with them, send them a nice email. That's prospecting. And obviously in the cold zone, you could physically, if you wanted to, like I had to do for 10 years, walk down the street and walk into shops cold and ask them if they wanted to buy insurance. That was prospecting. And you talk about getting nervous. Yeah, it takes a while to get the courage up to do that, but that works. So you can prospect at all three layers, whether they're cold, they're warm, or they're hot. So, but understanding where they are will help you identify the sort of conversations you have with them and how you fit in. And that's why I said when I first started, if you learn how to prospect, your business will always continue to grow, no matter how busy you are, how slow you are at the time, because you've got the ability to be able to drive your business. So with sales, you do some marketing, people ring up and want to buy. So marketing, sales, but prospecting is when you're going back out. You're not waiting for them to ring. You're not putting out social media. You're actually driving it by picking up the phone, sending an email, walking out and seeing somebody, or some sort of action where you're driving it. So you're prospecting, you're not waiting. And that's the mindset difference. So that's the cold, warm, and hot zone. You can do it in all three zones. And I'll get to the screens again in a second. But
I think sometimes we overlook people in our warm zone too, in terms of, I think you can sometimes be constantly looking for new clients, but sometimes it's important to go back and revisit old clients that you haven't connected with for a while. Maybe they've just dropped off because life got busy or whatever. But I think sometimes you got to remind yourself that, it's important to go back and revisit your existing clientele as well.
Well, the easiest person to get as a client is someone who's already been a client once. They're generally the easiest ones. In fact, at ReNet, 14% of our clients every year were people that were clients for a few years, decided to go try something else, and then came back. So never ever discount previous clients. So, but let's look at social media. I mean, you're big on Instagram. I don't do much with Instagram. I do a little bit with Facey, but I'm big on LinkedIn with social media. And I see certain patterns, but what do you think of prospecting through social media? What's your thoughts on that?
It's funny. It's obviously with some of the stuff we've done, I've been upping my ante on LinkedIn prospecting. And it's funny how sometimes you behave differently when it's via a social medium. Like I think one time you're over my shoulder looking at some, and I think I jumped into the cell a bit too quick, whereas you said to me, well, if I walked out on the street, would that be the first conversation I have with someone? You wouldn't. You'd develop rapport and have a conversation. And I think, I think there's definitely a bit of an art to social media prospecting.
Well, and I think this is where it gets a bit grey. And social media has been easy to put up some posts and share what you do and do marketing and create an environment where people get to know, like, and trust you. But I guess you could call it a form of prospecting, but the reality is it's not. It's really just marketing. Prospecting is when you look at the people that are interacting with you. They're sort of in your warm zone now. And then the conversation you have with them next is when you're prospecting. Waiting to put up a post on social media and then the phone to ring, well, that's fine, but that's marketing and that's advertising. It's not prospecting because you're just waiting for a reaction. Prospecting is, once again, when you drive it. So if you do a post on social media and you get some engagement, it's not a free ticket to start hammering everyone with a sales pitch either. So prospecting could be as simple as saying, hey, thanks for engaging in my post and starting a conversation up. I notice you do this, this, and this. Tell me more about what you do, because I'm into bike riding or beers like you do. And all of a sudden the conversation can extend from there. So it's just starting those conversations off. And eventually you'll start enough conversations off that you're prospecting with enough people that it just comes back to you. So the difference between, once again, social media, when you're posting stuff, you're not really prospecting, you're marketing, you're advertising. Prospecting on social media is when you're starting to drive it back to the people that you're either seeing online that are posting good stuff that you like, and you start going, hey, we've got something in common here. What do you think? Like your beers, bikes, and business trip we're doing. You see other guys are into mountain bike riding. Maybe they'll be interested in our mountain bike trip. Beers, bikes, and business, just in case you didn't miss it.
Prospecting.
So, but that's the difference, right? All of a sudden you're going out to people and going, hey, what do you think? And you're having a conversation with them. We seem like-minded, and all of a sudden, and some will respond and some won't. But that's the difference.
I think one of the challenges with social media is you talk about starting at the closed to then open. What is it? Closed, open, confidence, belief. Yeah. I think one of the challenges is getting people through those 4 stages. You get them open, you get a conversation going. How then do you get them to the next level? Is that where you get on the phone, or is that? I guess part of it's about capturing emails. How do you capture their email?
Yeah, well, even if you look at let's look at the 4 levels of the human mind as a base layer. If you're it's pretty obvious to go, which layer is the one I don't want, which is the closed one. So what you do when you're prospecting is you try to avoid everything to close people off. But there's two sides to it, right? Because I might ring up, hey, I've just found Courtney online. I start to try and reach out to Courtney. Then I realize Courtney and I aren't going to get along. I'm closed. I go, no, it's okay. I don't really want to deal with Courtney. Or the conversation extends and I do want to deal with Courtney. So there's two sides. We're trying to open up the conversation here. And I'm also trying to get a bit of confidence and belief that there's some sort of relationship here where we're similar. And once again, that's me driving that as opposed to the other way around. Like I might think Courtney's perfect, but if Courtney's not responding to me, it's like a dog chasing a car. I'm not prospecting. I'm now starting to, hassle or hound or oversell a prospecting opportunity when Courtney's not even responding. So you've also got to think about with the 4 levels of the human mind, am I progressing through to the open level or not? If I'm not, you do the next one. You keep on moving on.
Is prospecting on social media, do you think, a lot slower? If you meet someone on the street, you can have a conversation. You meet someone social media, you kind of have one conversation. You got to wait for it to come back. It's
yeah, it is slower, but it's also global. So it's also the opportunity to do it's way more than it's ever been. So you can obviously, if I meet someone, down the street at a bar one night and we're having a conversation, well, I'm already at that conversation stage. Whereas on social media, you've got to encourage that conversation. Either they've encouraged it with you by commenting or engaging, or the other way around. And that's where, so the 4th one was also the fish attracting device. So with the fish attracting device and you're prospecting, so there's one way of doing it, which is obviously going out. There's another way of doing it. And this is like your social media post, but think about it a little bit differently. So I come up with this term because of the Bustleton Pier in WA. And I was on this tour there in 2008. And we're on the pier, and out the back was all the fish around the end of the pier. So we went down this glass thing, and the tour guide said, so this is like a fish attracting device. And I've gone, that's just like business. So basically what you need to do in business is do things that attract the fish that you want to attract. So then you can have that prospecting conversation with them. And that's a little bit like your marketing, but it's done with intent. And it's not just marketing for marketing's sake. In other words, here's a post of us doing something or whatever. No, it's marketing with intent to actually attract those right people to have that right conversation. So the way to think of it's like there's some natural ways you can do it because of what you do in business. And then there's some unnatural ways, like, they'll sink a ship or they'll build a wharf and all of a sudden the fish come. So there's unnatural ways you can do it by creating things. Like with real estate agents, for example, I dealt with those for so long, but they would do things like sponsor golf days. What's that got to do with real estate? Well, nothing, but it attracts people to them. Then they can start prospecting in reverse from there. Does that make sense? So you can do lots of things to attract people to your business that allow you then to go back out and have that conversation with people.
So if you're a main street business, you've got a sale rack out the front, or you've got a display in the window, or that's your fish attracting device.
Yeah. So if you wanted to prospect and let's say you're a new coffee shop in the main street and you wanted to go prospecting, well, you could just stand around, wait for everyone to turn up. Or you could go to all the shops around the place, say, hey, I've just started a coffee shop and have a conversation with people and try and attract people into your business that way. The fish attracting device with a coffee shop might be slightly different because you're going to have a theme and, you'll either have, elevating music, or you'll have rock music, or you'll have bright colors, or you'll have quiet colors. So you're going to come up with a theme that'll attract the right kind of people. It's in Byron Bay to be a funky coffee shop, but you get the point. You're attracting the right kind of people for your audience. And, but if you wanted to prospect, for example, down the street, and you could actually walk down the street and just say to people, hey, I've got a sale on this Saturday coming up. So locals, have a conversation. Pretty simple, right? But uncomfortable at the same time to go and talk to people cold.
So fish attracting device will kind of push people through that, cold, warm to hot.
Yeah, it's just attracting the right people. I guess if there's, if you look at your cold, warm and hot zone, how do you know which ones to prospect to? So you create things that attract, it's called the pull effect or the magnetic effect at the same time. So it's not just social media posting. It's not just setting up a business. It's like that pull effect or that magnetic effect. If you were into organic food, well, you do things that attract people who are into healthy food. That's what you do. If you had a fashion label that was bright colors, you do lots of things with bright stuff to attract people that like that. And the other people that don't like those colors wouldn't come. But that's the one way of doing it, is think about it like a fish attracting device. If I attract people, then I can actually do the prospecting back. So where's the people I go and talk to who are in my warm zone, but they aren't quite there yet, by creating things that attract people. Like I said, the magnetic effect or the pull effect.
Your time at Renet in software, what was your fish attracting device?
The funny thing was, I've always said at Renet, I never had one. I taught it for ages, but I never really had one. The business was established and up and running. But I did do things like I went to events and I had stands and stalls and I went and spoke to people. Yeah, I never, even though I taught it, I actually never had one at Renet. I didn't need one at that point. And now, since I've been out, you know, I've created this Success Hub. This is a fish attracting device. This is literally, if I want to be surrounded by like-minded business people, well, guess what I created? A Success Hub. It says exactly what it is. Entrepreneur facilitators, sessions like this, guest speakers, training, workshops. This is a fish attracting device for the people that I want to be around. So literally the perfect example has actually come after Renet for me. I didn't need it at Renet.
Going back to the 4 levels of the human mind, how important is it before you try and get people to be open and confident and believe that you're open and confident and belief in what you're doing? You know, I think we've all sold things probably that maybe you didn't have so much faith in, or it's been a lot harder. You know, we see it with small businesses. I think you get some people who just come in and want to start a business to make money. They don't care what business it is. But then you have other people who are super passionate about what they do. And it's often those passionate ones who, you know, will go further. How important is it that you have confidence and belief in?
Well, the 4 levels human mind works on everything. So if you don't believe in your product, or at least have confidence in your product, you're not going to be able to sell it no matter what it is. You know, you had a bar for a long time. If you didn't like the beer, it's going to be hard to tell people it's any good, right? So it happens obviously on both sides. So there's your own confidence and belief, and then there's their confidence and belief. And everyone goes on that journey, and everything goes on that journey of the 4 levels of the human mind. So how important is it to have belief and confidence? Obviously, yeah, it's imperative, or else it's fake, and fake doesn't last. Fake doesn't last. But I think what sometimes is the killer isn't the ability, and you might have had really good beer, but you know, it's that ability to be able to have a conversation that leads to a yes answer. You know, when people walk to your bar and it's 5 minutes to go and you didn't want to serve them, well, then that's not really building a business, is it? You know, or if you're a cafe and you're 5 minutes early before they turn on the coffee machine and saying to someone, sorry, mate, I'm not open yet. You know, instead of saying, look, I'll just be 5 minutes and I'll make you coffee. You know, that's not really prospecting. That's just people have come to you, and that's just keeping them confident, believing they can stay within your warm zone as a client. So yeah, I mean, it's different to prospecting that, but I mean, you can't physically walk in cold and have a conversation with someone if you don't believe in your product. So belief is the top tier. So,
and that raises a question, I guess. You know, sometimes you see people trying to perfect their product too much, as in rather than just get out there and start prospect. I don't know, maybe it's a procrastination thing that, you know, if you're trying to perfect it, you'll kind of won't have to go and prospect. How important is it just to get it out there? I actually heard, I think it was a guy off LinkedIn, had a quote, something around, if you're not embarrassed by the first iteration of your product, you've left it too long. How important is it just to kind of get out there? I guess one thing I've observed with you is you don't wait for perfect. You just get out there and you prospect and you connect with people. And then as things arise, you tweak the product. You know, it's how important is it just to get it out there and connect with people?
Well, definitely. I mean, if it was perfect, I'm not sure what the definition of perfect is, because I'm not sure I've ever achieved it. So, but yeah, if it was perfect, I mean, then what? You know, I've always been a big fan of just get out there and do it and be proactive. A little bit more like Richard Branson's style, where he just went out and did it. He thought it'd work. He just went and did it and made it work and dealt with it as it came up. Mark Zuckerberg, I heard his quote, and I can't remember what year it was. And he said, you know, when he was programming and starting Facebook, he just had a quote, which was, hurry up and break things. In other words, it didn't matter if he broke things and he put things live and it wasn't perfect. You can always fix it. So if you're nimble at going live with things, you're also nimble at fixing things. So it was quick to respond and hurry up and break things. In other words, if you wait for perfect, for me, you know, I've had programmers and it's not quite right. It's not 6 months later. In fact, I know projects at Renet, even though I'm not there anymore, that still haven't gone live from when I was there, because they are obviously waiting for it to be perfect. And I just would have said, look, put it out. Because sometimes people didn't even like the product. I'd think it was great. You know, so I got 80, 90% of the way, that's good enough. And if they like it, we'll continue to finish it off and wrap it up or improve it based on feedback. But sometimes I put things out that I thought were awesome, no one liked. So imagine if I'd have waited several years to get that perfect, and then no one liked it anyway. So I needed to get the feedback and find out what was working. Does that make sense? So what is in my hot zone within the company? So I never waited for perfect for just about anything. And I was never embarrassed about it. Well, I did break a few things that I shouldn't have broke, but that's another story. But I never waited for perfect, and I still won't. Good enough's near enough. And if you can get that working, just keep on building on top of it. Because you're going on your own journey yourself, through confident belief. And the best way to do that is actually go to market, like physically go to market. If you're starting a restaurant, open it up. Start serving people and start tuning it up.
So nowadays you're doing a lot of international coaching and that type of thing. Where did you start? Like in terms of, you obviously jumped on LinkedIn and just started. What did it look like?
Well, it's sort of reversed. It came to me in the sense that people started asking me to share the story. And then I started looking at how I could package the story up and sharing it with people, which sort of segues into the business cycle. So I started looking at the things I did and how I actually created the business. And with the business cycle, you've got your marketing, you've got your leads, you've got your introduction, you've got your presentation, you've got your close and your follow-up. And that's the business cycle. And where does prospecting fit into that? Well, prospecting fits outside of that. Once you start prospecting, then it's important to understand how it fits into the business cycle, or how, you talked about LinkedIn and things like that. And I have had conversations that led to some really, really good deals. So people just start talking and a bit of conversation, a bit of, a few questions backwards and forwards. And all of a sudden it's like, and what do you think? In fact, I got one today from a year ago that emailed and said, look, business is going really good, but I'm thinking about doing some coaching thing. How's it actually work? In other words, from a conversation a year ago I had with someone, he's now decided to reach out to me and say, basically, my word's not his. What about some coaching? So that was prospecting from a year ago. So you're always sowing seeds in the business cycle. You're always doing that sort of thing. And like I said, you do 50 odd decent, constructive conversations prospecting a year. And some of those start to come off a year, 2 years later, to grow your business. I'm not talking about day-to-day clients. I'm talking about some big prospecting clients. It's amazing how big your business will be in a few years' time, because it just keeps compounding on top of itself. So when you first start, you're thinking, oh, where's my next client going to come from? You just keep driving it. So if I was a coffee shop, how do I prospect? Well, I keep everyone else in the main street knowing who I am and how they fit in. So they recommend people to my shop. Because if we go back to the top tier, the 4 levels of the human mind, the belief level, I'm down in the clothes shop and I say, oh, where's the best coffee? Well, these are the 2 I like. They're at the belief level. They're going to recommend people to you. So prospecting, even if they're not a client, still helps people know who you are. So let's go to the real estate industry. In the real estate industry, they would potentially prospect with people in the finance industry or the valuation industry, the parallel industries. Even if they never sold the house with them, they still would recommend them because they had a relationship with them. So that's prospecting through collaboration. That's prospecting through a third person. So prospecting doesn't always mean going out and trying to get a sale.
Well, it's interesting, the old 6 degrees of separation. It's kind of like, just connect with this person. Hopefully they'll link you here.
You got it.
And I think that's one of the biggest killers for business, when you just lock yourself away. And I think that connection, connecting with people and just getting out and meeting with people. And I guess it's been one of the challenges over the last 6 months is, obviously what's happening. Obviously there haven't been lots of networking events and that type of thing. So it's kind of how you, how you get out and connect, I suppose. So.
Yeah. So, and once again, we go back to the start, the prospecting, the difference between prospecting, selling and marketing. So hopefully I've tried to help clear that up. I mean, I never stop prospecting. It's just part of my DNA now. But there is a big difference when I'm having a sales conversation about doing a deal, when I'm doing marketing and putting things out there, and when I'm actually driving it back in reverse. And I guess, you asked earlier, what's the best way to do that? Is it by picking up the phone? Is it by emailing somebody? Well, it doesn't really matter as long as it's part of what you do every day. So it's a conscious effort every week that you have that prospecting part of your business. As much as you think about your marketing, your advertising, or the sales that are coming through, you have to also keep at the back of your mind. Prospecting is really important. Like a farmer sowing some seeds this year for next. They plant today, but they don't get paid till next year. And that's what prospecting is all about, continuing on that business flow for future business. So, and that's the big difference between the three. I'm not sure if there's any audience questions or not, but otherwise I've got a few here.
One quick question and a bit of an observation. So Scotty, you mentioned you prefer, or you're sort of more suited to LinkedIn. And when you're on LinkedIn, I notice you're sort of more supportive and sort of more supportive and motivating, whereas Courtney in Instagram is more transparent and kind of more of a very approachable. The question is, when people are starting to think about prospecting via social media, should they be thinking about the platform that works for their personality type or more about their product, or a bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both. I mean, I've got a friend who's got a really cool dress shop, and she's on Instagram and she just puts up photos all the time of the product. So she's not really prospecting, she's advertising and she's marketing. Does that make sense? Mm. She's not really prospecting. She's actually literally advertising and marketing. And when people come along and connect with 6 Degrees, or they connect with Alt Collective on Instagram, I mean, really the message is about what's coming next and how they can be involved. And it's really that message. So, you know, finding the platform and making comfortable what you do on that platform, well, it is important. You've got to think about it. And I think Instagram is one that you push stuff out. I'm not you're big on Instagram, and I can't really answer that one. But the way I see it is it's pushing stuff out on Instagram. People scroll and look and might like, but don't necessarily engage as much as they would on Facebook. So Facebook's got a bit more engagement. And LinkedIn's a different sort of system again, where it's purely about business and business relationships. In fact, there's often the argument that it's not Facebook, it's LinkedIn. It's not LinkedIn, it's Facebook. You know, so there's often that little bit of an argument in the middle. But, you know, I guess having that clear intention about what you want and what your objectives are on social media, and then understanding if it's just marketing or advertising, if it's going to be prospecting, well, what do I do with the people that engage? What do I do with those people, regardless of the platform? So it doesn't matter which platform you're on. It's having that intent and that goal and objective of why am I on there? And it's interesting you say that too, because one of my goals when I first got on LinkedIn was just to be supportive. So it was actually an intention, without anything expected in return, just to be intentionally supportive of those people out there going on the same journey I went on, you know, over all those years. And there's lots of really good people out there. Just a little bit of encouragement from now, you know, every now and then is going to make a massive difference to them.
I think, Ash, were you sort of referring to getting your personality across as well, sort of through, as in like, I think it's, I mean, that's part of your fish attracting device, I suppose, getting your personality across through social media or, and trying to attract like-minded people, I think. So,
yeah, and I guess too, just saying with Instagram, where you'd be a bit more brand orientated or mindful of brand as opposed to say LinkedIn. So I guess just trying to find that perfect balance of this is my personality type, and also this is the type of product that I'm actually promoting or in the terms of prospecting. So yeah, just trying to get that balance of personality and the product alliance.
I think it's really important to understand your target. We always talk about avatar clients and who your target market is. And, you know, we've been doing some stuff through Instagram, you know, through this program, because a lot of the clients we're connecting with are active on there. But in saying that too, with, you know, the business retreats that Scotty and I are working on at the moment, we've been doing a lot through LinkedIn just because it's that business to business market. So I think, I think, you know, often when we connect with clients, it's like, just pick one and do it really well, you know, rather than try and do 3 or 4 different mediums, just do one and do it really well. Because I think the other danger you have with social media is if you got 3 or 4 mediums, I don't know if it's just me, but I kind of find messages from 6 months ago. I was like, oh, I didn't know that person sent me a message. It's like, well, that was a warm lead and it's gone, you know. So I think if you can just have one medium, you miss less things, I think. So,
you only want 2 at the most. So, you know, I think it's important to probably have a couple, but if you're trying to do all 4 or 5, I mean, you won't do anything else.
Yeah.
And you won't do any prospecting. You'll think you're prospecting. You'll think you're really busy, but you're not really achieving anything. So it's got to be that balance and that intent. So how are we going for time? So do you want to start doing a bit of a close here, or
any questions from the floor?
What do you feel like your preferred clients are not on any social media?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because, you know, I didn't do any social media through Renet, just so you know. My only thing that was important to me was my clients and my staff. So I was always having conversations with my clients and staff as my social media. So I didn't really get into social media until after Renet, just so you know. I really did nothing with it. So, if they're not on social media, for me, I'm going, well, it doesn't really matter, right? It's actually irrelevant. So they don't need to be on social media for you to be able to go out and pick up the phone and prospect and have a conversation with people.
So how do you find them?
Well, then you've got to do your own research on social media. If they're not on social media altogether, they're going to be somewhere. Well, then physically cold calling, go and finding out who they are. So let's say they're in the medical industry and they're an industry, for example, the doctors and stuff. They're not necessarily always on social media. So if you're going to go and find them, well, you've got to go to where they are. What's their fish attracting device? Where are they going to be? And how do I get in touch with them? So that just has to become part of how you go and prospect and create those relationships. Because there are some people that just aren't on social media, and that's fine.
Well,
I mean, I was
they
one
have
of
a
them.
profile, but they're never actually on there.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah, I was one of them. I never did anything with social media. So for all those years, it didn't bother me. In fact, the worst thing about social media for me was that all of a sudden I had my Facebook account and some of them wanted to connect with me on that. And next now they went, oh, Scotty actually surfs. I thought he was just a business guy. Now he's a surfer, really? Does he actually do any work or does he just surf all day? So social media can also have a negative effect. And that's why some people don't want to be on it. They want to hide that second hat of theirs in their personal life. So I get why some people aren't on it. And I was one of them. I was one of them for a long time. So I didn't really do anything with social media. I wanted to have the relationships with my clients and my staff over anything else. So yeah, I'm all for that. You don't need social media to have a successful business. I do look back sometimes and think I could have done a lot more prospecting if I had been more active, but my formula was fine. So you don't need social media to be successful. I actually think that's a bit of a false positive, to tell you the truth. You can have a bucket load of followers on social media and have no business.
Yeah.
So it's more important to have business than it is a social media account that's successful.
Thank you.
So we might just go over the screens again and what we covered on, and then we'll start to wrap up because I think we've got 40 minutes. So these are the 5 things we went over, right? So let's go through them again. So there was the 4 levels of the human mind, which is the closed, open, confident belief, and everything goes on that journey. So everything, when you're prospecting, or people are prospecting with you in reverse. So you'll actually get to see. So one of the best ways to learn how to prospect is watch how people are prospecting with you and the sort of conversations they're having. You got your cold, warm, and hot zones, and that's where you can prospect with all 3 of those zones. Picking up the phone, having a conversation with existing clients, the people that were clients or think about becoming clients, and obviously the people in the cold zone. You can prospect with all 3 layers. And once again, making that part of your habit will always mean you'll always have a business. Social media prospecting. So the big difference between marketing and advertising on social media and physically prospecting, looking at who's actually responding, who's engaging, who's like-minded, who you can have a conversation with about business or your business or their business, and physically prospecting. Then there's your fish attracting device, where you create things that attract people to you so you can actually fine tune those people in your warm zone to prospect back. So that's that pull effect, that magnetic effect. And I think about like a fish attracting device in your business. What is it? It's more than just brand or logos and colors. And lastly is the business cycle. So, it's understanding how prospecting fits in and where people are in the business cycle. So that way you can actually then go through and do what's next. Am I going to continue on with marketing now? Am I going to have an introduction, or is it a lead? Am I going to start doing a presentation and a close, or is there more follow-up to be done? And it's understanding where they fit in that business cycle, as well as around the cold, warm, and hot zone. So that's the summary of the difference. But the biggest thing with the objective of today is to understand the difference between a sales presentation, marketing and advertising, and actually prospecting, having that open-minded conversation to build your business as a foundation layer of your business. And I won't say it's a forgotten trade. I just think people might be a little bit scared about it. And social media is a little bit to blame for that, I think. And I think social media is wonderful, but I'm just saying that the prospecting and the art of prospecting is still something you can learn over time. And I think is a foundation layer of your business. Mm. Entrepreneur facilitators, you guys preach that too.
Yeah, and I think it's just about starting. Just get out there and do it. Like connect with one person, see where it leads, and go from there. I think it's just important to get started and get it out there. So.